and welcome to my podcast, Art and Artist, where I use my background as an experimental existential psychologist to showcase a different way of living life, a more artistic approach to life, where the word artist is defined more as a type of personality than by a hobby or career. Living artistically means that your own life is the canvas on which you create. Your own life is your artwork. The artistic path in life is defined not so much by what you do in life, but how you do it. In a world that is rapidly becoming less predictable and more defined by conflict, catastrophes, and culture wars, it becomes a natural and normal response to feel an existential sort of anxiety. No one knows what the next few decades have in store, but they will most certainly look different than the decades of the past. As an existential psychologist, I do not purport to have answers to societal, political, or global issues. My focus is rather on what we as individuals can do to take back the power that we unconsciously give away. And we take that power back by returning to one of the most fundamental human desires, the desire to play. Today's artist is Katarina Keca. From nomadic adventures to her time as an actress to the ways she transmutes life experiences into art, Katarina lives and breathes the artistic way of life. In this episode, we discuss insights and lessons from her time riding horseback across Canada as a van life nomad and as an international backpacker. Katarina shares how turning away from alcohol changed her approach to life, and we discuss how drugs, love, and death affect art and life. I hope you enjoy our discussion, and thanks for tuning in. All right, Katarina Keca, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, all right, so where I'd like to start today is kind of just the same place where you and I met, which was Van Jam Campout. And for our listeners, Van Jam Campout is a music festival slash wellness retreat slash nomad van life gathering. It was hosted in Southern California in April of this year, 2025. And there you spoke on a content creator panel with a few other nomads, all of whom have a pretty solid following on social media. And getting ready for our chat today, I looked back at my notes from that day because I always have a notebook with me. I saw that I had written the way Katarina engages with social media sounds quite true to artistic form, which has very much to do with the intention for this podcast and everything. And so that initial feeling about you is what ultimately led us to meeting here today for this discussion. And I believe the specific thing that you said that gave me that feeling was something about living your life with the sense of trust or faith that things are just going to work out for you. Which was after the other panelists had answered with kind of how they planned and prepared or like spent a little time like worrying about this thing that the person had asked. So there was certainly this contrast that I noticed. And then, so I guess what I'm curious about with that is the role that the sense of trust or faith plays in your life. Like where do you think that sense of trust comes from? Is there something that's perhaps spiritual or religious about it?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to say it's funny to hear you say that because, like, here I am back in Canada, like, my van's broken down and I'm not in my van anymore, but still trusting that it's all going to work out. So, and yeah, and those, other panelists are still on the road. So it's funny though, because really your sense of trust has nothing to do with like the mechanics of your vehicle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all that to say is it's definitely something I have been, I guess, growing within myself and like building. It's definitely, it wasn't a default for me, this like unending trust, let's say. But I've just kind of learned that it really does all work out. And I feel like if there's one thing that like getting older has really like taught me is each year you get older, you have that much more experience behind you. And when you look back at everything, I feel like if there's one thing I would ever change, it's just like, why did I worry so much? Like, look at, here I am, everything's fine. And I believe the best way to really, have no regrets is to be so present and just enjoy whatever moment you're in, even if that's a hard one. So yeah, having that trust is definitely something I've grown. And it's something I still work on every day. And I think I do think it's like a choice. I think it's just a daily choice. And it's
Mm,
definitely spiritual for me. Um, yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
for sure, yeah. And I guess my follow up to that is there did something happen in your life that kind of led you to have like make that choice to just choose to trust, where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, actually it did. I don't know why. The first thing that comes to mind actually is like giving up alcohol. Like when I first quit drinking alcohol, I did a year off and I went to AA meetings. It wasn't like I never would have sought that out by myself, but it was actually, I was in an acting company and my acting teacher was very invested and she was like, you should go to one of these meetings. And I was like, I don't need to go to one of these meetings. But it was kind of the first time I heard that the first step is to like admit you are powerless over the substance. Right. And then
Mm,
the other thing is you have to believe in something higher than yourself. And for me, I wasn't raised religious, and kind of the idea of God, I was a little bit turned off of. But then hearing in AA this idea that like it doesn't have to be God, it's just something that is greater than yourself. Like it can be the universe, whatever it is, it's bigger than you. So that was kind of like the first time I heard that. And then about a year into COVID, I went solo backpacking for 7 months. I was in a really bad spot in my mental health. I'd been working, 80-hour weeks in the film industry, and I just booked like a one-way ticket to Spain. And I started traveling and healing, and I was like, I guess, new into my sobriety. And I just started meeting the most incredible people, like kind of spiritual gurus that just came into my life so organically and were really just transforming my life, like giving me so many healing tools. It's when I started meditation, a really intense writing practice. Like I just went really kind of more deep into spirituality in like a very organic way. And I think a huge through lesson of that and that experience and just solo traveling, all of those places that I did was just trusting that it all works out. And it just always does. Like it really does. And I that's when I really started to practice it. And of course, there's moments in life where you kind of like lose that perspective again. But I think that belief that it does, and that there's something greater than us is it's both humbling and it kind of like can take a bit of the pressure off too, because yeah, we're just so small on such a huge planet and we're here for such a short time. So why not just trust? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we really can put so much weight on our shoulders, and I think that's one of the
Hmm.
places where like I know a lot like I for me sometimes it's one of the things that has put me into like kind of a pit of depression at times. I just like put so much on my shoulders, and I I think I have to do everything, and that there's so much to do. But then like I just like go on a hike in nature or something. I'm like, oh yeah, and it's just this reminder.
I feel
Um,
like a hike in nature, especially like if you get high in elevation, is just like the best. It's like instant perspective shift. I am small, I am connected, and then you're like, okay, I'm good.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't take much sometimes.
Hmm.
And then so I'm curious with AA. There's kind of this connection that I'll see if I can remember. The founder of AA, and I'm blanking on his name right now. I want to say it's like Bill something, but
Yes.
he was chatting with this guy Aldous Huxley. Does that name mean anything to you? Um,
Sounds familiar,
he
maybe.
was an author. He wrote The Doors of Perception, which was like a pretty big book, kind of in the psychedelic world. Um, and as at least as the myth goes, like the two of them were in talks about like Bill, if that's his name, wanted to um, I, if I'm remembering it right, he had some sort of mystical experience that led him to become sober. And he had been
Mm.
thinking about integrating like psychedelics or some sort of mystical type experience in the like 10-step program. But I think it was Aldous Huxley that kind of suggested against that because I think it was like the time frame of it and like some of the things that were happening culturally, politically. He was like that might not go well in the next couple of years, and so I think he advised him against that. Um, but maybe a follow up with that is just like have do you do you feel like you've ever had something that you an experience in your life that you would call a mystical experience. It's like kind of um, defined by like a couple different characteristics of like losing a sense of time and space. Um, there's an ineffability to it. There's just this sense of like kind of mystical, spiritual sense to it, and it's just like transcendent, like far and above anything you've experienced before. Have you ever had any sort of experiences like that?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've had a few, um, some totally sober, and some, of course, on psychedelics.
Mm.
Yeah, and they're so deeply profound. And I guess I feel like I know what you're talking about, but then I feel like I don't know if there's like a lesser version of that though. But I do feel like you can almost access that kind of maybe clarity or knowing, whenever you want. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
I do agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this was like, this domain specifically is like especially relevant to the stuff that I was studying in my PhD. And I was
Okay.
very curious about these kind of experiences. And so, like, a lot of
Mhm.
psychedelics research kind of focuses in they kind of over obsess, in my opinion, about like these mystical experiences. Which I would kind of put just kind of like on the far end of a spectrum of experiences that I would call more like, non-ordinary states of consciousness is like the large umbrella, and then
Mhm.
underneath that are something called holotropic experiences, which is a term coined by Stanislav Grof. And he called it holotropic because it's coming from Greek holos and tropos or something like that. It's moving towards wholeness. And so it's like that's a subcategory under this larger umbrella of non-ordinary states of consciousness. And so it's like the type of experiences, because like if you're drunk, that's technically like a non-ordinary state also, but
Mhm.
it's not like moving you towards wholeness. So the types of experience that move you towards wholeness are going to be more like, I think it has more to do with kind of intention and kind of like how like not necessarily what you're experiencing, but how you're experiencing it, how you're showing up for that. It's like it's about presence. And so yeah, definitely like things much closer to like, I don't know, maybe like just a tiny step in that direction for me is like if I'm just going throughout my day and then I just become aware of my breath for like just a couple breaths, and I just like it just like brings me into a type of presence that's like just a tiny step towards that like much greater sort of mystical sort of realm. So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay. Cool.
Long-winded answer, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, okay, so I'm curious if you and I don't know, maybe you're starting to touch on this kind of with the van problems and stuff, but like the pros and cons of kind of living with that sense of faith, instead of doing this more like planning, preparation, worrying about things that could go wrong.
The pros and cons. I honestly don't know. Well, I guess I've planned things, but I don't I feel like I just leave so much of my life up to how I feel and where I feel guided to. And one, that can be hard to explain to others. Two, it's hard on yourself actually sometimes because you're like, why am I sometimes you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, where is it going? What's the end? Like, or there's just nothing to hold on to. So you are really trying to continue fueling that faith, I guess. Um, so I would say the cons, like I'm definitely not a planner. I have goals, but I mean, they're tangible, but they're also, just like I have a million goals and a million dreams. And I've never been the kind of person that could pick one thing ever, ever, ever. And I'm finally, I think at 32, just accepting that I'll never be that person. Even with a career, like I think I'm kind of accepting, like I don't think I'll ever have like a career.
Mm,
And, I was just telling you before, like, I just started a new job. I'm doing car sales, which is like hilarious for me because, like, when Alex met me, yeah, I was like barefoot living in my van doing content creation. And now I'm wearing suits and selling cars. Like, it's literally, but it's comical. Like, to me, it's just funny. And I'm like, I just trust that that's where I'm supposed to be right now. And, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of like going off topic, but just realizing essentially that like van life isn't the adventure, like life is the adventure. And I think van life is like an obvious adventure. You know, you're always driving to new places, you're meeting new people. But I'm kind of approaching this job and this new life with that same sense of adventure. Like, who am
Yeah.
I in this position? Who am I at this job? Who am I when I meet customers? Like, it is all an adventure. So I think the downside is it can feel really shaky and unstable sometimes, or it feels like you're not really making the progress because you're not hitting these like maybe pre-planned milestones. And I think that can wear you down. And I think sometimes, yeah, we kind of mentioned, we talked too about like, you know, you can feel a bit depressed because if you're kind of just having blind faith, like, I don't know, are you actually like backing up the things that you need to do to support whatever it is you're trying to create? So I feel like that can be a difficult thing. I think a perk of having just faith that it all works out is that I think life's just more enjoyable. And I just think that I feel like you're open. Like, I think um, we don't always know what we're meant to receive. And I think if we're always trying to identify what it is, we'll miss out on it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I heard this one thing that I always think about. It's like maintaining what is it, like a perspective of, okay, wait, I'm totally going to butcher it because my mind is a little tired tonight, but it's something like always having, oh yeah, like an openness of infinite possibilities. It's like you can't even imagine what is possible, so why would you try? Can you just stay open? And I guess that is part of what just trusting is like, I don't know what it looks like. If it looks like working at a car dealership, that's what it is, and I'm open to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, it can be hard, but I think it's more exciting.
Yeah. I
Mhm,
totally agree. Yeah. And it's,
mhm.
I mean, that's very apropos to like the whole, what I'm trying to like pull out of these conversations is like this different approach to life of like I'm kind of contrasting as if it's two different ways of life, but it's like as if it's a binary, but it's of course more of a spectrum of like how much one lives more like in this sense of like trust and artistry and like living life, like engaging with life as a sort of creative act. Like one's life is the canvas basically. So like that perspective versus like and it kind of comes down to like a goal sort of approach versus like an intention approach, which like a goal is this exterior thing where it's like something in the future and then I got to try to get to it, versus like an intention is more like coming from this place of like moving from like I want my life to feel, you know, such and such way, and then just like kind of staying open to whatever opportunities come your way. Because it's like if you set this goal and you're so focused on it looking a specific way, you might lose out on a lot of opportunity. You might miss a lot of the stuff that's so like there's kind of a push and pull there where like there's this there can be a benefit and a lot of like I don't want to say good, but like there can be a lot of achievement and stuff from like you have this goal and then you do it, and like especially in with culture being the way it is, like that can be really rewarding financially, and whatnot, but like it really can disconnect you from the felt sense, like the felt experience of life.
Yeah, I
um
would almost say, sorry if you don't mind me interrupting, just that
Please.
like for me, what I hear the difference too is like the goal is like very cerebral. It's like, what should I do? And you're thinking about your plans. Whereas like I feel like intuition is more sensual, it's sensory. It's like, how does it feel? How is my body responding to it? Where am I just naturally drawn to? Even when your brain is like, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? Blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like the trust is like, no, I trust something deeper than my brain telling me that's stupid that is guiding me in this direction. And I do agree. Like I've always, this idea of like living artistically, I've always felt like, oh, I'm not a real artist if I'm not like creating some kind of art. And that like, but no, I totally agree with you. I'm like, no, I'm an artist because of how I live my life. Like I am engaged with my senses, with the experience. I'm present. I am trying to, transmute it into maybe Instagram reels or whatever it is, or writing. But even if I feel like you're not actually creating something of it, I do agree that you can live artistically.
Absolutely, yeah. And that so speaking of kind of artistic mediums and stuff, um I know that we're talking about like, yeah, this component of artistry, where like I'm coming at an artist of like defining an artist more as a personality type than about like the
Right.
hobby or the thing that you're doing. But I am curious about the different mediums that you have worked with, because you've mentioned acting. I think you mentioned writing at one point. I'm curious what type of writing, also, by the way.
Yeah.
And yeah, just what mediums have you worked with?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in theater performance, and then I did like private, um, what do you call them? Not conservatories, but like I studied privately, pretty intense acting methods. I did Strasberg technique, which is really like very similar to method acting. I did that for 3 years. It kind of ended up being a cult, honestly. So that was
Mm,
ended up being a really hard experience, but I learned a lot. I did Stanislavski. I did Meisner technique. So I did theater, and then I also went into like the independent film world. And I loved acting. Like ever since I was a little kid, I was like, I want to be an actress. Um, so I would say that's like the art form I'm most maybe versed in or trained in or studied the most and really actively pursued. Writing is more like breathing for me. It's just like something I need to do to, maintain like well-being. And it's something I have wanted to pursue on a larger scale. It scares the shit out of me a little bit. But I feel very called to write and share my stories. So I've written short films, and even, made the film, produced the film, acted in the film. It's edited, it's finished. We just need to submit it to film festivals, but we just haven't yet. But
okay.
and then I've just written a lot. I have, 30 plus journals, and I've written a short story that was published, but my goal was actually to try to submit more stuff to get published, and I haven't. But writing is writing feels like the next kind of thing for me to put more energy into. And then I do love to paint. I have like, I've sold a little bit of my paintings, but it's one of the things where I'm like, I just don't want to monetize every art form. And then of
Mm,
course, I guess, yeah, content creation, which is how we met. Just sharing on Instagram for the past 2 years, sharing my van life journey and building a small following, sharing, yeah, my experience on the road. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I've like a handful of follow ups to that. One, I guess, which one do I want to start with? I'm curious. Okay, so in all of these different mediums, uh, there's always this like tension of uh, like you were mentioning, you don't want to monetize all these, and like for one of those reasons, I'm guessing it might have something to do with this. Is like from what I study in psychology, like a lot of the things that we do for intrinsic reasons, so like something that I do as an end in itself versus something I do for extrinsic reasons, which is something I do as a means to some other end. So like in this example, it would be like creating art as a means to get money versus just creating art because I just want to do it. Is that like once I do something intrinsically and then I shift to start doing it extrinsically, um, with the dynamics totally change and it becomes much less. A lot of the time, it becomes much less like rewarding.
Mhm.
Is that kind of where you're going with that, of like why you don't want to monetize it?
Well, I think it's more just specifically painting. I don't want to try to, well, I kind of have tried to monetize, but I haven't.
Mm,
There's something about painting that is just so luxurious to me. Like it just feels like to spend time to paint is like, wow, like, oh my God, I have time. I don't know why. That's how it's always felt for me.
mm,
Writing is both. I like feel like I need to write. A part of me feels like it's one of my intense purposes and calling is to like write a book, especially. And that's the one. And then I would love to monetize from that. I would love to sell my book. I haven't even written it yet, but I would love
yeah.
to. Um, so that one feels like both. But when I do put that pressure of like, it's almost like thinking of it as a product instead of being in the process. That's the shift for me is like,
Yeah.
oh, if I'm writing to write a book to sell, then I start thinking about like, oh, well, who am I writing for? Are they going to like it? Are they going to receive it? Instead of like, no, what is the story that's just coming out of me and just like, clearing space for it to come out. So
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
I feel like I can't think of monetizing when I'm creating, but it is there. It's definitely there sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a
Mhm.
perfect segue to the other thing I wanted to follow up on of how like innate in all of these art forms, there's always some sense of like constraint on it. So like whether it's like painting, it's of course like you're using specific you choose the paper, you choose the paintbrush you use, you choose the types of paint and like the different, I don't know much about painting, but there's like, I don't know, there's probably different chemicals in there that make the paint come
Yeah.
out different or something on the paper. It feels different.
Mhm.
But so you have like the things that are kind of constraining the art form itself. And then like and then you also have kind of the exterior things like once you start monetizing or you start like doing it for some other reason, there comes like all these other pressures that come from the outside. And this is pretty this is a thing with like every art form. I think it's like kind of what especially musicians talk about when they're like selling out. It's like you're selling out because you're catering to like what this exterior amorphous idea of like an audience or people or culture or something wants, rather than just like what do you as an artist want to do, what feels alive in you, and what do you want to create. And so I guess I was most curious about this with social media and the way that that impacts you, and how like because that feels like it's a very kind of obvious one where there's like these algorithms you got to cater to and like certain things like you got to do stuff to get engagement and all this stuff. And so I guess first part of the question is like how have you engaged with that in the like creation process for social media, but then yeah, if that like relates to your other art forms too, curious.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As soon as you started talking about that, I was like, that's like social media. It's like, I don't want to sell out. I'm the kind of person that like immediately wants to rebel and reject that. Like, honestly, part of the reason I even walked away from my acting career was like, I couldn't get behind a lot of the BS in the industry, and like I didn't want to be in one city and have you have to stay in the city because you're building a network and you're working with an agent, and that agent, oh, actually no, your hair, oh, you cut, why did you cut your hair, oh, okay, actually, oh, I wish you still had your buzz cut because I could have gotten you a role for that. It's like, what? Like, let me just be me. And with Instagram, honestly, I feel like I don't give a fuck about the algorithm, honestly. Sorry, excuse my language. But I
All
just feel
good.
like I don't care. Like, I don't care. I don't care what you want me to post. Like, I clock it. And sometimes I feel frustrated because I feel like I could have more growth if I was playing into the algorithm and I was more on the trends and the stats and the blah blah blah. But the minute, like actually, when I was at Van Jam, was talking to someone, they were lovely, like a great person, but about stats and this, and you should sell that, and she was blah blah blah, blah numbers, numbers, numbers. I literally was just like, I could feel myself just melting. I was like, no, 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 everything in me is shriveling up. Like, I'm not. Yes, I love brand deals. Of course, I love to get paid to work on Instagram, and I'm not against that. But like, can I do it my way? And this is a battle I've had throughout the entire time. And part of me feels like it's inhibiting me from, profiting off of Instagram. I have not made a lot of money on Instagram, honestly. Whereas I know other creators really have. And part of me is like, am I just too stubborn because I just want to create what I want to create? And I feel like it resonates with people. But I do have to say, like, it's funny to see, sometimes I'll make a video, for example, I put really no thought into it. It takes me 15 minutes and I post it. And then I'll make another video. I'll spend hours and hours and hours editing it. And the one that I barely thought of was like, I don't even know if I should post this, goes viral. And and I will try to make sense of it, and I just don't even, sometimes I don't think there's a point. Like, I'm just like, okay, that one went viral. So my goal was always, I honestly was like, I'm going to put out quantity, not quality. I And this was so liberating for me because I'm a perfectionist, and I think as an artist we always want our work to be perfect, and we're so hypercritical. So when I just instead was like, no, let me just pump out as much as I can possibly create, take off the pressure, and then let's just see what lands. And if it's a numbers game, then fine, I'll just put out a lot of numbers. And for me, that was liberating. So I do still feel like I don't want to sell out, or I didn't even want to work with certain brands. Um, but then at the end of the day, you got to eat. And I kind of, like, I worked for a brand that sells on Amazon, and I didn't, at first I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Ended up being a wonderful experience. They want to work with me again. I had such great contact with the person I was working with, and I had to feed myself, and I'm okay with it. And I made the video that felt authentic for me, and they loved it. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if that answers your question, but it is
For sure.
something I am constantly, I think it's just a dance that I will maybe always be in. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand what you're saying, and I feel a
Yeah.
lot of those similar things about not wanting to, like, when a system or a job or a boss or mentor or somebody tells me I have to do something a certain way. There's just like this automatic like, fuck you.
No.
Like, no, I just can't. It was one of the things that I'm kind of surprised I lasted as long as I did in the military, spending nine years. I think it was like around year 6 or 7 or something, where it started really rubbing on me of like, I what if I just want to be who I want to be? Like, I have to. I haven't shaved my beard since I got out. It's like one
Mhm.
of the ways I rebelled. It was like,
Nice.
yeah, I want a beard.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, there's kind of this piece in there of like culture and the way that culture and society are kind of always it's like, yeah, you have to eat at the end of the day, and it's like, so there's all these things like um I could get like really existential and really theoretical about this, about like freedom and how we aren't really that free, and how like full blown like freedom is actually extremely terrifying, like from an existential perspective, because there's just so many options and stuff. And so it's like one of the things, there's like this kind of push and pull with culture, where culture, especially the way it's kind of designed right now, especially like around like especially a capitalist system where like you need to make money and have a job and stuff to make a living and stuff, and it's like you need to make quite a bit of money to like make a decent living and stuff. Whereas, some time ago, like you more or less like have always needed to make money in some sense, but like being more self-sufficient and stuff, if you're growing your own food, like you don't need to buy as much, or like if you have animals and then you make a community with people and you can kind of just like share stuff with each other and stuff, like there's other ways that we could be living life. But there's like culture is kind of just forcing us into these things, like like you need to make money. Like it's really hard to do that as a nomad. And I see that as being one of the big struggles of people
Yeah.
living in that lifestyle. And I don't know. I guess I don't know where I'm going with that, but like the point is like that feels like another one of those constraints on us, that like it's just kind of the water we swim in, so we don't really think about it too much. But it is one of the things that like I am trying to, like, I'm moving into this phase of life where like I'm trying to be inspirational about like getting people to think outside the box, to live their lives a little bit more creatively, to come up with unique and creative solutions to the problems they face in life. And like for me, definitely like nomadic life has been one of those for me, for sure.
Mhm.
And then like, to the extent that that inspires people, like, not, it's not for everybody and whatnot. Um, but yeah, I guess where I want to take that is maybe going to like, uh, so you spent some time living nomadically. You spent 2 years
Yeah.
or so in a van. You spent some time backpacking, and then you also
Mhm.
did this horseback adventure across Canada. And I guess I'm curious to know a little bit more about that. That was a family endeavor, wasn't it?
Yeah, so me and my sister, it was a childhood dream when we were like little girls to be the first women to ride our horses across Canada. And we decided when I graduated university and she graduated high school, we have a 5 year age gap, we were going to ride across Canada. And so then that day came and she was like, let's ride across Canada. I was like, hell no, that sounds terrible. But she convinced me to go with her. And I decided, actually, I didn't, yeah, like I said, I was acting. I was living in Montreal at the time. I was deep in the acting world. I was in the acting cult. I was like just all in on that life. I was bartending. And I just was like, that sounds miserable to spend, 12 hours on a horse. But I missed my sister a lot. We're very close, despite our age gap. And I felt like, not that I owed it to her, but that I just wanted to be there for her. I just felt like I wanted, yeah, I really did it for her, I guess, originally. And then obviously it became like, it's just so funny how it happened. So then we ride across Canada. I move home. That was actually the first time I was sober for a year. It was in 2017. We trail our horses to Nova Scotia, which is the east coast of Canada. We rode for 4 months. We thought we could do it in one summer, and Canada's like massive, if you don't know. And so we took a year off, and then we started up again a little bit further than where we left off. There's a part of Ontario that's just like not rideable. And then we rode from Ontario to British Columbia, Vancouver, So that took 5 months. So it was a total of 9 months on horse. And yeah, the trip, of course, obviously, like it changed my life. How could it not? You're like living like a cowboy essentially, spending all day, every hour with my horse. I was like so in tune with him and nature. And yeah, when you're spending that long just riding or like walking, we would walk a lot, like most, just as much time off the horse as on the horse, just to give them a break. You get to the point where like you can't listen to music, you don't want to listen to an audiobook, you don't even want to talk. You're just silent and you just enter some kind of state and you're just taking in everything. You just become so present. And so then I moved to Vancouver essentially on a horse, with only the belongings that I had. And I didn't know, like, I didn't even know how to integrate that experience. I had no idea. I got to Vancouver on horseback. I had no money. I had no place to live. I found a house. I got like 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and just threw myself back into like, okay, I'm going to bartend and serve. I'm in this city. Everyone has all these things. Why do they have all these things? Like, I couldn't understand society. I literally felt like a freak. I was like, I just wanted to yell at people, like, what are you doing? And so obviously, but then instead of that, I think I then turned that on myself. Was like, what's wrong with you? Why is everyone else like, everyone else is okay with this? Why aren't you okay with this? And then, yeah, that's been kind of a theme for me, is being like, why can I not fit in this system? And then COVID hit, and, life proceeded. A bunch of things happened. Anyways, I ended up, finding my way back to van life, which almost feels like back to what I was doing on the horses, which is like, I'm free, I'm in nature, I'm in tune with the seasons, the weather, everything, the stars. And yeah, mostly I'm free. But what I want to say earlier too is this idea of freedom, right? And I really feel like this summer, I had too much time on my hands and I was going crazy, like literally crazy, driving myself nuts. And I do genuinely believe like freedom, it's a state of mind. It's not just how you live your life. Like you can, I feel like, and I mean this with like no disrespect at all, but I feel like you can be a van lifer and still not be free. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like I was that van lifer at times. Like I was living freely, but why was I not, like, I was not free within myself.
Mm.
And I almost feel in some ways more free now. And I'm working this, 9 to 5 corporate job. And I feel so much, I feel aligned. I feel safe. I feel healthy. I feel clear. And so I do think you can find freedom kind of within whatever system you're in. And I don't know if you've read like Viktor Frankl.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like that's a crazy book, and how he gets through that experience, right?
Yeah.
With his mind, essentially.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. He developed I mean he's pretty deeply in like the academic family tree that I come from. It's kind of
Okay.
existential humanistic and everything. Um, and so he had a big impact on me. Actually, one of my favorite quotes. Let's see if I can remember it. In between stimulus and response, there is space, and in that space lies your growth and your freedom. That made a huge impact on me for many years. I don't think about it as much these days, but it's kind of like what meditation is about, like meditation, or like not just meditation, but these things that get us in more in that present moment. Like your horseback trek. When people go on like these long distance backpacking treks, um, it's like there's kind of in life we can like something happens and then we just immediately respond to it and there isn't that space there, and that like I think that's its own type of prison, to like live in that way, because it's like you're not really free. You're kind of just like this automatic responding machine. And so like his depiction of that, like it just made a huge difference for me of like
I used to feel like that I was just reacting to like all of life's challenges. And, it's like I wasn't choosing where I was going. It was just things happened and I had to react and respond to it, when it's like, no, like that's how I ended up, in places I didn't want to be or why I wasn't happy. I
yeah
wasn't taking that pause.
yeah
Mm-hmm.
It's speaking of pauses, it sounds like these was it 3 months you spent on the little
Mm-hmm.
island?
Yeah, just
Um,
over.
and I guess something I was curious about is kind of in different kind of phases of life, especially like with these more nomadic things. You know, you have your for you it's like the horsebacking. You did international backpack travel. You did van life. In
Mm-hmm.
those things, like I've found, and this seems like a pretty unanimous thing in the community, is that when people are in those kind of like, it's like a mindset that comes with that type of like traveling and just kind of like open minded, kind of just blown with the wind sort of thing, is that it's much easier to meet people and like make new friends and like just kind of have kind of these amazing experiences. Like just the other week, I had a couple people camping out with me, and we just like blown with the flow, blown with the flow, blown with the wind, going with the flow.
Going with the
Um,
flow. I like.
yeah, and it's just like some magical things can happen. We went to a concert,
Oh
and I
yeah.
hadn't expected to do that, and then like there's just all these things that happen that I would never have expected. And it's kind of harks back to that what we were saying earlier of like sometimes if you like have too much of a vision and you stick too closely to that, you miss all the opportunities and stuff. But I guess my question about this is what you've noticed about, like, you know, you've lived all these nomadic things. You've also lived on that island, which feels like it's I would guess it's maybe a very close knit community that's like maybe not as open to outsiders.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if that resonates. But then like, yeah, now you're in a city, and just
Mhm.
curious like how those different modes of life have affected like your ability to connect with the people around you.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, so the island I was on was a small Gulf island. So it's off Vancouver Island. There's like so many Gulf islands. So they all have little ferries that go to them. And this one had about 400 residents. And in the summer, it almost like doubles in size. Like there's a lot of tourism there. So a lot of people are retired. But I know a lot of people, I don't know, I don't want to speak badly of that place, but I did find like, and I also think, again, I have to say, I think a lot of it was me. I was going through a really hard time. So I think the lens with which I was like maybe viewing the experience was like, I was just going through a lot. And I think I was maybe mirrored with a little bit of that energy. But a lot of retired individuals, but a lot of this mentality of like, this is our island. Like, oh, these tourists come and they leave trash and they do this and do that. And it's like, it's not your island, actually. Like it's an indigenous land, and then many indigenous people were slaughtered here, and now there's a bunch of Christian camps, and even just this whole mentality of like it's our island really left a bad taste in my mouth because I was treated like that, like, oh, you're just, I was looking after this woman's house for the summer, and of course with her permission, like I was invited into her place, but I was treated like such an outsider and just sent these like passive aggressive emails. Everyone was like really unfriendly, and it was honestly shocking because like the van life community is the exact opposite of that. I feel like it's like open arms, wherever you're from, whoever you are, whoever you love, we don't care. Welcome, you're home here. And we care about our land and we pick up after our garbage. And it's actually not our land. We're just visiting. And so we're gonna take good care of it. And we're conscious and we do cleanups. And so it was just interesting. And I honestly just wished, I'm like, I wish they all experienced the love of the van life community, And yeah, so that was kind of my experience there. I found it very isolating. And again, a lot of that is on me. It's on what I was going through. I didn't have a vehicle. Like I went from, free in my van, nomadic traveling, to like no car in this house with like grumpy neighbors that I never saw. So that was hard. And now I think part of the reason I'm loving my new job so much now that I'm in the city is I'm working with a bunch of young people. There was like 25 other salespeople. It's very social. It's a very positive environment. I have a lot of like, guidance and support. And I feel I feel fulfilled by that. And I am realizing how much I'm like, okay, I've always been the kind of person that tries to self isolate when I'm healing or going through something, but I'm just really trying to do the opposite now, which is reach out, surround myself with good people, and be in community because I don't really think we're meant to go through life alone. I mean, ultimately, we die alone and we have to deal with ourselves and our own mind, of course, and we have to make that a good place to be. But I really think we're meant to heal and grow and learn from each other. And I just think we should be around people.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
for sure. Yeah. Hmm. So you just mentioned like that we die alone, and I don't know. Anytime anyone mentions death, it always sticks out to me because I researched death and how like our awareness of it impacts us in life and stuff. And I guess I'm curious if like how and I might broaden this out a little bit, give you options here, but like what has been the role, if any, of uh, death and grieving in like your creative process, like how it's impacted your creative process and or like your own kind of self growth and your identity. But yeah, the role of like death and grieving and or like love and heartbreak, have those played a much of a role in like kind of your own self growth or your creative process?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I guess I'll first start with death. Um, I think death is beautiful. I feel like we should talk about death way more. I feel like it should be considered more because, even okay, yeah, well, I have so much to say about it. I just think it's so inevitable, and we pretend like it's not going to happen, and I'm so guilty of that. Like even now, yeah, I the place I work, everyone's very young, a lot of like early 20s, and I realize like, oh my gosh, I'm relating more to people in their 40s and 50s than I am to people in their 20s now, and just this idea that when you're in your early 20s you just don't think, like, you're going to get old but you don't really think about it, and then
Mm-hmm.
you are getting old, and like it's just, it's inevitable and nothing is guaranteed. And I do believe death is the greatest teacher, and I think it's beautiful, and it's what makes everything so much more incredible. Um and I feel like I've been fortunate. Obviously I've experienced death, like, not a lot though. Like, not I've experienced death, like death in the family,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
obviously no, and I came back. No. But yeah, it's what do I want to say about it? I mean, yeah, I think it's devastating, but I think at the same time, I do genuinely believe that connection continues, like to people, to pets, beyond the physical realm, and I feel that. Um, and I just think it's beautiful to mourn and to grieve and to miss. Like, what a testament to that experience or that relationship. Um, and then for heartbreak and grieving, yeah, I feel like I've experienced a lot of heartbreak and grieving as well in those relationships. Oh, I guess I don't really know what to say about it because I'm like, yeah, I could go in a million different routes, and
Here, I have I do have a question in mind. If I could maybe
yeah,
give
please.
you a direction, um, has in the process of let's say grieving or in heartbreak, has there been any kind of artistic projects that have come out of that for you? Whether it's
Oh
something
yeah.
that you showed other people or is just for yourself?
Yeah, no, I write way more when I'm heartbroken, like for
Yeah.
sure. Like, oh my gosh, the post breakup like journal is just insane. I actually used to think as an actor too, there's kind of this like toxic belief that you can only create, good art, or, from suffering, which I'm sure you've heard, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And same with your acting, even as actors would have like, oh, this fucked up thing would happen. And then you're like, oh, well, at least your acting will be really good now because you have that experience to draw off. Right. And I think because of that, I kind of lived in a pretty dark place, like a lot of my 20s. Like I think because you wanted to have that access to be really close. So when you're in a scene and you need to have it's right there. But living that close to your grief and your heartache, like you're not letting it go. You're repeatedly just like ripping it open, ripping it open, ripping it open. That is not healthy. And I think honestly that, like, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to act anymore is I felt like, oh my God, I'm just manipulating my own emotions to constantly feel this turmoil or heartbreak or grief, because a lot of, I think, the roles I was cast in are those really intense, dark, heavy ones. And I just decided I don't want to live there anymore. I don't want to keep accessing that. I don't want to keep re-experiencing that and sharing it. And like, yes, it can be therapeutic, but I think in the way that where I was studying, it became really unhealthy, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know. Heartbreak is, I don't know. It's like devastating and beautiful. Like it really is. Like I think sometimes like the most potent life has ever felt is like right after a breakup. You know, when you're like, I don't know who am I? You're just like you could just feel everything so intensely, and part of me kind of like loves that, but also knows that like when I see someone that's heartbroken, I'm like, oh, I don't envy you.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of it for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel that. And also I also feel from I mentioned the other person I interviewed was a teacher teaching the Stanislavski method, and one of the things that came up was um, in acting, like the sense of like how much you access your own like memories and experiences and emotions and like put that into a character, and like how that can, exactly as you're saying, like how that can be a really like that's one of the things that it seems like there's a lot of training that goes into like that exact dynamic, so that that dynamic doesn't affect you, the Katarina, instead of the actor, like affects the Katarina in these negative ways, kind of can kind of create these kind of split aspects of self and everything. So I
Yeah.
totally get that.
Well, I feel like acting is extremely unregulated. Like, how are you supposed to measure it and make sure it's safe? And so I think a lot of teachers, you know, obviously anyone can be an acting teacher. You don't need to be qualified. And I think a lot of people honestly get really manipulated by acting teachers. And there's not much guidance as an actor. It's a really hard industry. And you're just looking to anyone to tell you what to do, where do I go, how do I do this? And someone doesn't. And then they tell you, do this, this, and this, and this. And you're like, okay, and then you're like, well, and you look back and you're like, that was not okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I'm pretty sure like every actor I know has some crappy story of some version of that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a bummer. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess it's maybe kind of closely related with this next and maybe the last kind of domain that I'd like to go into, which
Yeah.
is mental health. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
and I would like to approach it more from this idea of living life artistically and like kind of where that plays in. So I guess, I mean, it sounds like we've kind of already touched on this, but I guess my first question with it is just, have you at times struggled with your mental health? And if so, like kind of what have you found to help?
Yeah, I've struggled a lot over the years. I think ever since I was a teenager, I struggled with depression, and then that's been ongoing. That's been ongoing until the present. Until the present. Um, and what's helped me the most is uh, mindfulness for sure, meditation. I would say, like, yes, therapy, but more so like anything more somatic or body based helps. I think having some kind of mentor, healer, coach, energy work, anything, somebody that's there guiding you, because I think in those moments when it's really hard, you just can't do it yourself. You can't. And you need people. I think again, I'll say that like we need people. Like, of course, we
Mm-hmm.
are with ourselves and we have to make that a good place inside. But I think if you don't know where to start, you need guidance. And I just think there's so many people out there that are here to heal and here to help and listen. Um, and then I am a huge advocate, and this won't come as a surprise, of just getting the fuck out, like, like physically moving yourself. I feel like, and I know, yeah, you don't always have to like blow up your life and change your job and fly somewhere, but why not? Why not do that? Like, if it's not working where you are and you can't have any perspective and you're so in your situation, if you can physically move yourself, like you said, okay, suddenly you're standing on a mountain, you went on a hike. Wow, you feel different. You're not in that energy space. You're not around those people, whatever. And I think like yes, traveling, people, mindfulness, like all of those things help. Art, creating, like creating something from your pain, I think is transmuting that into something, into creation, right? They say like depression is the opposite of expression. So like what do you need to express? What are you holding in? Um, I feel like that's really important. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I am nomadic and I love traveling is because when you're constantly putting yourselves in these new situations, like you really learn who you are, I think, because you can't, each situation, each place you go to, all the people you meet, they're bringing up something new in you if you're open to it. They're mirroring something, they're going to show you something, they're going to tell you something. And I don't know. I think it's like a expedited way to get to know yourself, because I just think if you're always in the same place, you're gonna, yeah, it's easy to just be the same. If you go to different places, oh, I'm different here, I'm different there, and I think that's why I'm saying like life is the adventure, not van life. Because if you treat life as that adventure, as oh, everyone I meet is my teacher, yeah, how are you not going to learn and not have a good, like you're going to have a good time, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, the true master is a beginner in every moment. Uh, that's a quote that's really been sitting with me a lot lately. Basically, is exactly as you're saying. It's like, are you learning? Like, are you paying attention? Are you listening? Are you like taking in what's happening outside of you, or are you just like kind of just immovable object going through all of it? Um, and yeah, you touched on like a good chunk of the things that I thought to follow up on here, which is like
Oh,
kind of especially coming from this more existential perspective that I bring to the table of like, and this artistic way of approaching things and how. So first off, like one of the people that I have learned a lot from, Otto Rank, who's actually he wrote a book that this podcast is named after, Art and
cool.
Artist.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, one of the things that he talked about with, I'm going to oversimplify the crap out of this, but basically like artists are like living this more artistic approach to life, there is kind of this greater risk of having mental health issues, kind of innately in it, because like partly because you're opening yourself to life, and you're opening yourself to the possibility that like, like you're gonna try new things and everything, and sometimes other people are going to be okay with that and sometimes they're not, and that could go a lot of places, and I could go down a whole huge rabbit hole about like how culture views mental health and like what is that. And I don't think the way our culture views mental health is like a very like kind of way that's good for the people in that
I agree with
culture,
you. I
um,
definitely agree.
which is a whole side tangent that I'm gonna hold myself back from. But this other aspect of like how, um, getting into these again holotropic states of consciousness, moving towards wholeness types of, states of consciousness, and how that like that's innately close to like this sense of play. It's about like loosening up. It's like literally some of the neuroscience researchers and psychedelics are looking at how, and it's like one of the bigger theories about like how psychedelics are working to treat these mental health conditions is that like if it's a mental health condition that is defined by kind of a rigid way of thinking, we think of these like kind of ruts in, like if you think of a rut in a road and how like if you're driving on it, like your tire is just going to kind of go in it. It's like those kind of really stiff, rigid mental patterns define like a good chunk of mental health, issues. Not all of them, but like a good chunk. And how like what psychedelics are essentially doing is they're like kind of, it's like shaking up the snow globe, as an analogy that some have used of like the snow is all settled, and we're just shaking that up a little bit. The psychedelics are kind of shaking that up. It's loosening things up, getting you out of your head and into your body, that somatic aspect you're talking about, and that much more like we are creatures, we're beings, we have bodies, we have feelings, we have like our gut tells us things, our our sense of like smell tells us things, all these things that we're like often not very connected to because like we're all in our heads so much.
Mm-hmm.
And how big that is also for like conflict resolution. Something I was curious to bring up earlier, because I found an old website that I think you and or your sister had created for the horse adventure,
Mm-hmm.
and in there I think it was your sister writing about how like how close you guys are, but at times you still of course fight and everything, but then like how you would just like ask each other to go for a ride or something, and how that would just like make everything better. Like you didn't have to talk everything out, but like there's this feeling of like, okay, we're okay. And it's like kind of to me, first off, is that kind of, I see you nodding. Is that, am I restating that kind of correctly? Is
Yeah,
that something?
yeah, yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, it's connected to this sense of like being in that state of play, however we want to define it. Just that like more like the embodied, like experience of the now, like being in the present moment, and then just seeing each other kind of loosening up, and you get to see each other smiling. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we often lose, as we get older, is like that connecting to that sense of play. But that's huge for conflict resolution. I think it's a huge, benefit of like just getting into those states of play and kind of coming out, and whether the conflict is with somebody else or with yourself. Um, Yeah, and then the last piece that you touched on that like I want to connect to kind of these ideas is also like creating art as a means of expressing one's introspections. So again, this guy Otto Rank talked about, and Otto Rank kind of comes from this the psychoanalytic tradition. He was a disciple of Freud, who later like broke away from the inner circle of Freud, kind of like Carl Jung did. But he talked about how like a lot of the times these mental health kind of symptoms that we're experiencing can kind of be like we're just like kind of choking on our introspections, and art and like giving expression to that through some form of art or play or something is like quite literally like taking those introspections out of one's head and body and like putting it out into the world, so we stop choking on it, and so yeah, I guess I just
I like that a
wanted to
lot.
draw those connections.
Yeah, that's what writing feels like to me. Like that's what it's been
Mm,
ever since I was a kid. And like I think when I did struggle with depression, I like couldn't I think I've just always been a huge feeler. Like I just feel things so deeply, I think as most artists do, and it's like I couldn't make sense of it or why it was so intense, and writing it out, it felt like it was like yeah, literally like it was like okay, I was vomiting it out of me. It was releasing it from me. It was now that it's on the paper, I didn't have to carry it anymore. And yeah, I can see art as being super therapeutic in that sense. And just what you said about having a sense of play. That's why I always try whenever I get the perspective again of like, oh yeah, I'm just a little tiny person out of billions of people on a little rock spinning in a massive galaxy. Like I just want to laugh, like, and in a good way. I'm just like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And
yeah,
I think that is so liberating. Like it matters so much and it doesn't matter at all, you know? Like and it's yeah. And then I just feel so like centered and like just like because then it's yeah, it's like what all these pressures, all these things that we tell ourselves we should or we have to be or the compare like whatever it is, it's just like it's all in here and that's nothing you can touch. And I just think yeah, don't like I'm really like you also mentioned I like when I really started healing on my journey was working with someone who was kind of in energy healing, and she was all about like she's like your neural pathways, we need to rewire all of them, Katarina. She's like they were all going down really dark routes and now we were paving new ones and trying, and then I noticed myself in times that default is still there somewhere,
yeah.
it's remembered and it likes to go back there, it's comfortable,
Hmm.
and then you're just chugging out those new lines again and again and again and again until finally that's the default. But it takes, I think the other thing like it takes time,
For
you
sure.
know like
Yeah.
sometimes you feel in a day like oh I'm healed, I'm never gonna like I thought that I'm never gonna experience depression ever again. And then you do and you're like oh I'm a failure, I'm bad, I'm depressed again.
Yep,
But
been
it's
there.
just like yeah, and that's funny too, but oh, what a silly experience it all is, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally connect too with what you're saying about like kind of how funny it all is ultimately. I call it the great cosmic giggle,
Yeah.
which is like this place that I first came up against it. It was psychedelic experiences of like there comes this point where it's just like so cosmically and absurdly funny, how like everything. And so I feel like the great cosmic giggle feels like it's always very close and accessible for me, and it's like where a lot of the times, in my better moments, if I'm like experiencing like a rough time or something like that, great cosmic giggle can come in and give me a little bit of relief. It's like literally feeling like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders sometimes, by just even tapping into that for just a little bit. um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I have this joke like I've like I don't know. I've had my like fair share of like experiences like dating that have just gone wrong, and I just realized like the worse the experience, like the funnier the story, and just like the bad ones make better stories, and I just kind of see things like that now, and it really helps me process it because I feel like when you look at things through a lens of humor, like it just shakes off all the seriousness of it. And I think with that separation again, right, of like, oh, I can laugh at it, then you can kind of learn from it. Like, oh yeah, like I see why I was in that situation, And that's funny because I'm not going to do that again, or like I was young, or like whatever it is. And even these jobs I've worked, like I can't help now but see most jobs I work at like I'm watching a sitcom. Like, oh, these are the characters on the sitcom, and I'm this character, and oh my god, that thing happened, and that's hilarious, and here's the laugh track. Like, I don't know if that seems weird, but um, I don't know. It takes me like I still feel very present in the experience, but I still feel like I'm just viewing it as, like I'm just having this experience right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to read your book when it comes out because it sounds like you've lived your life in a way where you have lots of fun stuff to pull from to make a really exciting, funny book.
I hope it's funny. It's funny to me. I mean, I wouldn't think that it's like a funny book to write it, but I guess like when I tell people the stories from it, they are pretty ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, Katerina, as our time comes to a close today, I would just like to close with two final questions. The first is just a fill in the blank style question, which is if more people did blank, the world would be a better place. How would you fill in that blank?
If more people did, it sounds like the only thing you could fill it is like drugs or something. More people do mushrooms.
Or maybe take
Honestly,
out the
though,
did, like if more people
okay,
something, but I mean,
the world.
if drugs are your answer,
Okay. No,
I'll
no, no.
accept
Drugs aren't
that.
the answer. But if more people, I think like I don't know how to word this the right way, but like if more people talk to themselves they would a child, I think the world would be a better place.
Ooh,
Like I feel like that's something I'm really like I've always heard a lot about, the child self,
yeah,
and like you were a little child in this moment, how would you treat that person? But like I feel like I'm really now feeling that more into my body. It's not just like a concept in my brain, and to really witness how I speak to myself in my own head. And it can be so harsh and so mean sometimes. And it's like, if I were to say those words to a little child or like little me or even just a friend, like it would be terrible. And I just think we're so hard on ourselves. And I think if we could start by just being kinder inside, it's going to come outside. We're going to be kinder to other people.
beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the last question here is just how can listeners best support you? Where can they find you? Is there anything you're working on that you'd like people to know about?
Um, yeah, I guess the best place to find me would be on Instagram. It's just my full name at Katarina Keca. And hmm, I guess I'm writing not consistently, and I'm not like really sharing it anywhere yet. That's kind of the next thing I'm stepping into. But I guess yeah, following along on my journey on Instagram is always really appreciated. I love meeting like people that way. It's one thing that's actually really surprised me about Instagram or just social media is like I feel so supported by that community. Like genuinely, I
Beautiful.
feel it. I feel it through there, and I didn't expect that. So yeah, I'm happy to connect that way, and also return the support. So yeah, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, Katerina, thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely beautiful and lovely talking to you. And
Hmm.
yeah, I guess maybe I won't see you on the road, or maybe I will. Maybe I'll have to visit British Columbia now to see you.
I would love to see you on the road. I do hope. I don't think van life is over for me. It's just a question mark right now. But I'm so glad you asked me to be on here. Like, really, these conversations really re-inspire me and also recenter me and just give me new perspective. So I really appreciate you having me and sharing all of your knowledge.
Well, thank you so much. All
Okay,
right, Katerina,
thanks.
take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Wake up and listen, the system is glitching. We're done being quiet, now's the time to riot.
Hey, folks. Thanks for listening to my chat with Katarina Keca. I thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, so I hope you did as well. I plan to record a solo episode where I dive a little bit deeper into what I meant about reframing mental health. I can't give any promises as to when that will be out. I'm new to all this, so just bear with me on that. But yeah, if you have any questions or follow-ups from today's discussion, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll get to those. Other than that, thanks for tuning in and bye-bye for now.